I'm the Global Coordinator of the International Indigenous Peoples Movement for Self-Determination and Liberation, or IPMSDL. And we welcome everybody to our event, the global launch of the Manifesto of Indigenous Peoples Against Judicial Harassment. And we also present online we will also be presenting the online monitoring tracker on the cases of judicial harassment and other attacks against Indigenous peoples. So as we all know, the Indigenous Peoples Manifesto Against Judicial Harassment and the Indigenous Peoples Judicial Harassment Monitor are part of the campaign led by the International IPMSDL, with partners in West Papua, the Philippines, and Northeast India, opposing judicial harassment that targets Indigenous peoples in many countries across the globe. So in many countries, Indigenous peoples are considered minorities in terms of population, and the conditions exist that further divide or drive our minoritization, and these are supported by legal and judicial systems that are products of colonialism. Racism and violence, which were inherent to colonialism, persist. These corrupt values are inscribed in the very core of our legal and judicial institutions. The trend of vicious attacks against Indigenous peoples, human rights defenders, and against other sectors of society has shown how government have weaponized laws, how government has further weaponized the laws, the legal system, and judicial system to silence Indigenous peoples and restrict the work of civil society. For us Indigenous peoples, from our experiences, judicial harassment means criminalization and harassment, threat, intimidation, especially when defending and exercising our rights to land, territories, waters, and natural resources in the context of investment projects as a form of intimidation. One of our goals to this global campaign is to strengthen the capacity of Indigenous peoples to equip ourselves by documenting cases of judicial harassment and rights violations. We need to increase the visibility of the cases of judicial harassment against Indigenous peoples. In fact, cases of violations against Indigenous peoples are underreported, or worse, not reported. And by this documentation, we hope to raise awareness about these cases to build more support and solidarity for Indigenous leaders, communities, and organizations under attack. Of course, also to expose this situation of violence against Indigenous peoples. So we are very proud to share the Indigenous Peoples Judicial Harassment Monitor. It is an initiative for an online monitor that presents the cases of judicial harassment against Indigenous peoples. It contains profiles of leaders and organizations under attack from the three initial countries of West Papua, the Philippines, and Northeast India. Report on human rights violations severely lack data on Indigenous peoples, and we hope that with this campaign, the information that we share on Indigenous peoples, our experiences would make it accessible to support evidence-based campaigns and actions to stop these violations. So aside from being informed, let us also act now and support organizations and communities under attack. Our Indigenous Peoples Judicial Harassment Monitor is our initial contribution to the broader campaign against judicial harassment and rights violations. And we wish to complement existing human rights monitoring platforms and add to the efforts of our fellow human rights defenders by focusing and highlighting the cases against Indigenous peoples. Hopefully, from this initiative, our dream is to expand the monitor to cover more countries and cases. And this can be possible with the submission and participation of wider and more indigenous groups, organizations, and advocates. So again, we welcome everyone to this event. We hope you can also help by providing your ideas on how to improve the monitor, also to support, donate, volunteer, and extend your expertise to further build this platform in defense of our rights and welfare. Now to mobilize support and solidarity, today we are also launching the Global Manifesto of Indigenous Peoples Against Judicial Harassment. So this is a product of a series of consultations in the 3 countries. So it is a declaration of our common goals to put an end to judicial harassment and other forms of policies that repress indigenous peoples. The Global Manifesto is also a global sign-on petition that we hope to mobilize and collaborate with other indigenous and human rights organizations, lawyers, legal practitioners, other defenders, activists, and the broadest number of individuals and groups to unite our voices. We hope that the manifesto will further raise awareness and broaden action in putting pressure to address and end judicial harassment and attacks on indigenous people's rights, on our lives, on our families, communities, and organizations. The manifesto also aims to be a tool for national, regional, and global campaigns in countering the criminalization and judicial harassment of indigenous people's rights defenders. One of the goals is to bring this petition forward, hopefully after gathering thousands of signatures and this coming session of the expert mechanism on the rights of indigenous peoples, or MRIP, this July in Geneva, and among other mechanisms and platforms. So all our support, your support is very important for us and to this campaign. So again, welcome everybody to our event. And without further ado, let me introduce our first speaker from the Philippines, Ray Pauline, who is a colleague of mine in Katribu. He is the national coordinator of Katribu. Katribu, or the Kalipunan ng Katutubong Mamamayan ng Pilipinas, is a national alliance of indigenous peoples, communities, and organizations in the Philippines. It was founded in 1987, and since then, Katribu continues to work for the attainment of ancestral land rights and self-determination for indigenous peoples in the Philippines. So Ray, are you in? You have the floor. Ray? Ray, kindly unmute your mic. You are mute.
Thank you, Anna. Again,
Okay.
thanks, Deb, for your introduction. And first of all, I would like to say a good day for everybody who is on tonight's online forum. I would like to share tonight the campaigns we have implemented here in the Philippines in line with our campaign on judicial harassment. We have at least 4 major events that I would like to share tonight. First, I would like to share our experiences in engaging and lobbying for the 4th cycle of the Universal Periodic Review of the Philippines that was held in Geneva. Our objective in joining the review is to forward the cases of indigenous peoples' judicial harassment, cases of criminalization, and rights violations among indigenous peoples in the country. Katribu and its members and networks join different activities in preparing to the engagement, which includes in-country lobbying and in-person review of the Philippine government, which is held in Geneva last November 22, where Katribu prepared and submitted a shadow report for the review of the Philippine government. The activity includes preparatory meetings with, we held series of activities in partnership with other networks, the Panakiusap Philippine Network, the International, the IP Rights International, and the Philippine UPR Watch, which is based in the country. Katribu sent its member and representatives of our organization in this series of meetings to prepare the shadow report to discuss the highlight cases of judicial harassment we would like to highlight during the review, and to craft inquiries and recommendation, to plan our engagement and advocacy with foreign embassies based in Manila, and to build a partnership among them. Other than the judicial harassment and the shadow report, we also include intersectional concerns about environmental defense, climate justice, women, youth, and issues on education. During our engagement and experiences, another good opportunity for us is the engagement with the Philippine-based UN missions and offices here in the country. The engagement assisted us in improving our submissions with reference to the UN OHCHR reports and recommendations. The result and recommendation of some of the UN member states after the review highlighted and mentioned the concerns on indigenous peoples has become a very positive for us. The recommendations and the result is very positive for the indigenous peoples in the country, which is the result of the series of our engagement and preparation meetings and workshops we held in the country. Another campaign, at least, is the Defend the North campaign. This is actually, we assisted the Cordillera region, the Cagayan Valley region, and Ilocos region in submission of the reports and lobbying of cases of judicial harassments, and now the bombing of indigenous communities, Igorot communities in northern Philippines and in Cagayan Valley. Katribu actually served as the main facilitator in this 2 days event that was held from March 20 to 21, where a 30-person delegation from the northern part of the Philippines went at the center of power in Manila, in Quezon City, to put forward the issues of the northern Luzon indigenous people. Included in our activities in this campaign is the dialogue with the Commission on Human Rights. The dialogue actually is a very positive one, because the Commission actually the Commission has promised to look into the cases we have submitted, particularly the bombings that was held in Cagayan Valley and in Kalinga, and the continued deployment of military and armed personnel in indigenous communities. The director of the protection cluster of the Commission on Human Rights is very open on the possibility of human rights workshops, on-site dialogues in the communities, and to do some psychosocial services to the affected communities and citizens. Also, the Commission on Human Rights committed to the independent investigation of the cases of bombings in Kalinga and Cagayan Valley, and also to look into the continuing red tagging and terrorist labeling of people's organizations and leaders and community members. Where we also, part of the campaign is also visiting the House of Representatives in the country, where we have met the chair of the IP committee or the cultural committee of the Philippine Congress. And likewise, we met with the chair of the Human Rights Committee in Congress, which both representative is promised to look into these cases and will file a resolution together with other representatives from the Kabataan Party List and the Teachers Party List to look into this, and will file a resolution in aid to stopping this continuing bombing and red tagging in northern Luzon. Another campaign, the third campaign, is the Sabukan On. Actually, I have already shared this the last time on our online meeting. Katribu initiated this campaign to free all IP political prisoners. Actually, Sabukan On is a lumad term which means free now or palayain now in Tagalog. Together with other national IP formations, the Bayang Indigenous Peoples Network and the Sandugo Movement for Self-Determination and Liberation, we are seriously to implement, to monitor judicial harassments and political prisoners who are already incarcerated in jails. And the third one, actually for the campaign, is the Asunto. We have a series of seminars and workshops on weaponizing the law against indigenous peoples and activists. The initial workshop or seminar was held last March 23, where Katribu, together with its allies and members, look at the laws being used for judicial harassments and attacks, and started to survey how the legislative and judicial systems responds to these judicial harassments. And in the workshop that was held last March 28, our invited resource speaker, a lawyer, lawyer Neri Colmenares of the National Union of People's Lawyers, actually challenged all democracy-loving Filipinos to stand with indigenous peoples. They discussed how the
can you wrap up? You have 1 minute left.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is the last one. And the highlight of the workshop on weaponizing the law is actually the workshop participants have discussed. We have analyzed how legislative support through the filing of several bills and actually one of the highlights of the workshop is where the participants have actually realized is that the judicial harassment is another tool in perpetuating impunity and a government's and business tactics to avoid accountability. Actually, those are the 4 major events we have implemented here in the country. Okay, thank you, Ben.
Thank you very much, Ray, for your input. It was quite interesting to see the combination of various tactics or forms on addressing the issue from at an international level, making use of the Universal Periodic Review. At the same time, at the national level, wherein you are engaging national human rights organizations and the legislative branch of government to look into these laws. And then, of course, the third will be probably at subnational and or a more local level is for the communities, the organizations, and for our leaders to study and review these laws and see the impacts and be able to plan on how to address the issue of judicial harassment, including probably filing counter charges in relation to all of these violations being experienced. So thank you very much, Ray. And I see that in the chat box, our secretariat has put the links in relation to the report that Ray has mentioned to the Universal Periodic Review. You can also use the chat box if you would like to raise questions or comments, or if you have other messages to share. Now, to tell us about the activities, events, and campaigns on West Papua, and how developing a monitoring tracker is essential. How important is a monitoring tracker in our global campaign against judicial harassment? We have Ronnie Kareni of the Merdeka West Papua Support Network, and the Merdeka West Papua Support Network is a solidarity and a campaign network for West Papua, and it has supported Papuan activists who have been attacked and judicially harassed for their humanitarian and relief work. And so we are proud and we are happy to have with us Ronnie Kareni. Ronnie, you have the virtual floor.
Thank you very much, Beverly. Firstly, I would like to take this opportunity to pay respect to the indigenous people of the land that I am speaking to you, the land of the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people in the so-called Australia, Canberra. In saying that, I also extend this respect to all the indigenous people around the world, as many of us, including the indigenous people of West Papua, and many of you are joined here on the online spaces, that our sovereignty never ceded, and we will continue to fight for our land rights and the dignity of our people. In saying that, I also would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the IPMSDL for convening and taking the stewardship to be able to convene different partners, including the Merdeka Support Network, to be partnered with the Center for Advocacy in the Northeast India, as well as with the other speaker, Katribu Advocacy or National Alliance group as well. And thank you for all the ICNL as well for their support as well behind this project, where it gives an important work to build the capacity of the indigenous people, particularly in West Papua, whereby we are seeing now in West Papua, particularly, where geographically, what I will touch is just to give a bit of West Papua overview, the work that Merdeka Support Network is doing, but particularly what is happening now on the ground and why it is important. This initiative of the Judicial Harassment Monitor is of critical importance. As you can see on the screen, this image here is one of the pro-independence leader, a youth leader, Victor Yemo. In 2019, he was instrumental in organizing the anti-racism protest. And as of today, as we came online now earlier this morning, he appeared in court, and the judges have dropped all the cases against him, but he will continue to spend another 8 months in prison. And it makes this project and initiative very important for us to continue to be able to monitor and being able to follow and advocate and campaign for it. And I also would like to pay my respect and acknowledgement to the youths on the ground that are continuously and tirelessly advocating, going down to the street every Tuesdays and Thursdays, or the days that Victor appeared in the court. Even in small numbers, they still maintain that resilience. And that is something that I wanted to also share a bit later, the outcome of this project, why it has really built this community resilience initiative, and why it is so important as well in terms of our experience and practice coming into partake in this project. For many of you would already aware of West Papua, as you can see on the bottom here. West Papua is just on the north of Australia, less than, depending on where you are located, but it is closest to Australia. And it's the western half of the island of New Guinea. Papua New Guinea is the independent state, but between Papua and Papua New Guinea, it preserves the second largest land or rainforest in the Pacific, but also on the southern part after the Amazon and the forest in the Congo. We made up of the 7 tribal groupings, as you can see here, the customary territory. And about West Papua Merdeka Support Network, it is our secretariat is based in the Philippines, and the work is so important that why it is important is that through the indigenous support network that we have, it helps to help to amplify the voices of the voiceless people, particularly in West Papua, where there's no media, there is no human rights monitoring or organizations on the ground to monitor the situations or investigate the situation. And it makes the work of West Papua Support Network very critical, and the partners and allies as well. For West Papua alone, as we can see here, between 2017 and 2022, the human rights situation has deteriorated markedly. And this comes at the back of the 2018 the Liberation Army attack construction site, and that between that period up until now, even 2023, an estimated number of 60,000 internally displaced Papuans are on the ground, and there hasn't been a data gathering of this, the numbers and the situation where particularly the indigenous people surviving during the military operations, during the height of the operations or the combatant between the Liberation Army and the national military. And therefore, since this project embarked the judicial harassment, it presents the need for community resilience initiative, which I will go into it in a second. So as we were participated in this project, it also allows us to come to realize that there is the community-based resilience has been the weapon, has been the strength and source of the indigenous people of West Papua. And so we have also come up with this initiative. We coined it or termed it Community Resilience Initiative. And the objective of this initiative is to support the local Papuan activists, researchers, volunteers on the ground to continue to start gathering data, particularly to understand the challenges, the needs, and the strategies for survival in the Central Highlands where currently the military operations are taking place. And the aim is to produce practical and knowledge and understanding of Papuan community resilience. And this will cover also the judicial harassment of independence, pro-independence leaders like Victor Yemo, but also activists organizing peaceful demonstrations where they are targeted, even independent journalists who play a critical role, and as well as those who are prominent leaders. And so this initiative is about that, making sure that we profile some of our bio data of our prominent leaders or key people in West Papua. And there's a big bulk of this is focusing on the IDPs or the internally displaced Papuans. Early this year, we have, through the Petisi Rakyat Papua, we did a joint statement as well with some of our NGO based in outside of Papua and submitted to the Universal Periodic Review as well of the current situation, particularly the conflict in West Papua and how the state have used the militarization to go into Papua and play this dual role of carrying out civic duties in administrations, particularly in health and education sector, but they use that as well to protect foreign investments, multinational corporations' interest. And this is also in the next phase, in the next 5 to 10, 20 years, because of the special autonomy revisit happened in 2021, the government is now looking for more investment, and there will be investors coming from the US framing the issue of climate change, but particularly it's to arm or to export human rights abuse into West Papua. And this is where one of the key areas is to identify companies or weapon companies that is coming in to try and, or Indonesia use or buy weapons from companies. And so there is a campaign that is specifically targeting weapon companies that are supplying and exporting human rights abuses into West Papua. So that is another sub branch of a campaign, particularly targeting weapons companies and creating data. So this is just an objective.
Bonnie,
yes.
You have a minute left.
All right.
Thank you.
And so part of this is to continue to build the capacity of the movement and the education and training and the media advocacy. So this is 3 key element areas that we really want to highlight here, and why it is so important that this project that we already embark into is of critical importance. With that, I will leave it here, but thank you very much for the opportunity to share some of the work that we already embark onto and to continue to engage and advocate in the space. Over to you, Beverly.
Thank you very much, Ronnie. I am glad that you are able to speak in today's event, because I do agree. If there is one place wherein there is vicious, brutal killings, violations of human rights, it is happening in West Papua, but it is also one of the cases wherein it is largely underreported. And the situation, in fact, in West Papua is unknown even among fellow human rights and indigenous peoples, human rights defenders. I think many would not even know where West Papua is. So I'm glad that with this project, we will be able to contribute to more documentation and data gathering on the situation of West Papua, and be able to contribute to the programs of the Merdeka West Papua Support Network in enhancing your program on community resilience, movement building, capacity development, and of course the strengthening of local organizations. So again, thank you very much, Ronnie, for your contribution. So before we head to our open forum, we have our last speaker, the last but not the least, from Northeast India, Jitan Yunam. He's the current Secretary General of the Center for Research and Advocacy, Manipur, and he will share with us about their experiences in their country. The Center for Resource and Advocacy was founded, I think, since 2004, and it has been contributing to the advancement of human rights of indigenous peoples in Manipur through quality and informed support to grassroots organizations. So, Jiten, you have 10 minutes and you may now start your presentation.
Thank you, Bab, and just one and greetings to everyone who are joining today in this launch. This launch of the Judicial Harassment Monitor is extremely important to highlight, to also document, and also to inform the challenges, the increased threat and harassment of indigenous peoples everywhere across Asia Pacific region. And this is more so even in our part of the world, in northeast part of India, where there are several states in the region. And in our response, we respond to multiple cases of how various indigenous leaders and community members are targeted to judicial harassment, especially for defending our land rights and also for defending our basic rights as indigenous peoples in the region. So during our partnership in the initiative, initiative, we were able to document at least several cases of how indigenous peoples are targeted. And this is happening right from during the COVID-19 times. You know, a lot of the indigenous community who are expressing concern with the way how the COVID-19 response, so several of them are subjected to judicial harassment. And also several indigenous community leaders who are expressing concern with the development aggression, especially the construction of large hydropower project. And today we are also witnessing an increased targeting of our land and forest. So many of the community leaders who express concern with the increased targeting of our land are subjected to judicial harassment. And in India, there are several multiple emergency and criminal law. So what we are seeing is the misuse or the application of the emergency and criminal law. This also led to harassment of many of the indigenous peoples. And we also, in our documentation, we also come across that there are several media, even the media people who express concern or who express their opinion on some of the government policy vis-a-vis on developmental issues or even on land rights or even human rights related issues are subjected to harassment, judicial harassment. So this is one of the major concern, and we respond to that and also try to help in coordination with several other organizations. And it's like
Jiten,
yes.
Can you slow down a bit because we have translation in Bahasa and in Filipino?
Oh yeah, sure. Sorry.
A little slow down a bit. Thanks.
Yes. So we are able to respond to several cases of targeting the community leader for defending the land rights. And I would also like to particularly point out the case of targeting community members for defending the forest right. So even across Northeast, in our region, one of the big concern in the region is the increased targeting of our forest land. So the increased pursuance of conservation projects, the creation of protected area. So this has caused not just the alienation of indigenous peoples, but also the use of force by the state and also the government. And this create to several cases where the community members are directly harassed, and several members are also arbitrarily detained and harassed. So I would like to highlight the case of this Katribu village in Manipur. In December, there was this several illegal detention and also harassment of several community members. So we were able to document that. And I would like to highlight that one of the good positive outcome of this initiative is we were able to reach out to various communities, not just in Manipur, but even across Northeast region. We are able to share the different trends of challenges, not just because of the conflict-induced challenges, but also because of the developmental aggression in the region. Because across Northeast India, we are able to have a couple of consultations where we are able to bring in different indigenous groups from various states and share our common challenges and common experiences, and also the threats to the human rights defenders. So I think that is one of the big outcomes, and we are able to issue our own position statement and able to reach out to the media. And media advocacy is also one concrete area that we are able to successfully undertake in this particular initiative, because there are several community initiatives to defend our land rights, to protect our land rights, and also create more awareness on indigenous rights itself. And in that process, also identifying the challenges within the community. And there are various challenges. Just in Manipur, there are challenges with the forest right violation, the issue of pursuance of large dam, issues of mining, and also the pursuance of mega infrastructure projects, which are all accompanied with the militarization process. So this consultation, this initiative, the community level initiative, we also undertake the media advocacy, and I think that also helped further in fostering a greater awareness, not just within the community, but also reaching out even to the concerned authorities as well. But still, we have huge challenge despite this initiative. Just in Manipur right now, we are having a very difficult situation. The pursuance of forest laws, the pursuance of creation of protected areas of forest conservation projects in a very fragile and ethnically very fragile area. So it already leads to much tension and conflict. Already a direct conflict is already happening within the community and also with the state. And this is a big challenge which is happening right now. And with the government further insisting on a lot of initiative like climate change related initiative and also economic growth initiative, a lot of the development push, this will complicate our situation further. And I feel this initiative is really important that we are able to keep track of what is happening. And in fact, many of the indigenous community, like in West Papua, doesn't have the voice and the media. And when I talk about the media, it's more at the localized media. It's very difficult even for us to reach out to the national media. It's beyond our reach. So this forum, this medium, this monitor is one way to reach out to various human rights groups, to the media, and also other concerned indigenous organizations. And this is an excellent initiative. And finally, I would also highlight that as part of our monitor, we also reach out to various UN bodies. UN we also send submit our complaints and also interventions with the indigenous special rapporteur and other human rights special rapporteur, and also contribute in our regional submission to the UPR, because India was reviewed last year. And we were also able to participate. And also beside that, we were also able to submit the UN, the study on militarization, the impact of militarization. So we are able to share the outcome of the documentation and also the outcome of the various consultation. Because one of the consultation is specifically focusing on the promotion of the indigenous human rights defender. And we come up with concrete position statement on advancing the rights of the human rights defender. And when we talk of promoting the right of the human rights defender, it's also important that we address the context as to why the human rights defenders' rights are being violated. The context of the political repression, the suppression of indigenous community, undermining of the political rights, and also the development aggression, which are fast unfolding on indigenous people's land and territory. Yeah, so these are some of the initiatives that we come forward, and the monitor is extremely important, and it's really good that we share our examples, the success examples, but also the current challenges, because the challenges are surmounting and it's increasing, especially with the or with the onslaught of the development migration in not just in our part of the world, and I'm very certain that this is something which is also happening in many other indigenous territory across Asia and other regions as well. So this initiative is really important, and we do look forward to further coordination and also sharing and also further involvement in all the upcoming strategies as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jiten. I think you shared a growing challenge of many indigenous peoples now on the issue of forest rights, especially in the creation of so-called conservation and protection areas, wherein indigenous peoples are eased out, no, of our lands and territories. And this is happening in other places like in Africa and in Kenya. And then, of course, the second point that you mentioned, that amidst all of these destructive projects along as the plunder of our resources continues, this happens in a situation wherein our communities, as you mentioned, are in a fragile state and considered even as conflict areas. So thank you very much, Jiten, and thank you very much to our three speakers, Ray, Ronnie, and Jiten. I think all of you have mentioned the link, have importantly highlighted the link between what's happening in relation to our land, territories, and resources, the economic interests, and at the same time, it's linked with judicial harassment. So judicial harassment does not simply happen in a vacuum. It doesn't fall from the sky, but it has something to do with our response to these projects that are being implemented in our territories without our free, prior, and informed consent, and projects that are not beneficial to us and to other people or to the country that we find ourselves in as a whole. So I know that some of you I had to cut off, but I think we have to give more time for our Q&A portion, for an open forum. So again, thank you to our speakers for sharing your insights and experiences. And now I hand the floor to Paul Belisario, who will be moderating the open forum session. Paul?
Thank you, Beverly. Thank you for all our speakers. Sadly, we don't have a lot of time because of our translators are limited. But again, thank you so much for everyone. And again, we would like to invite everyone to visit and check on our manifesto, to share it to your friends, and to sign, and to let's gather as much as support that we can to gather and people to stand on the issues that our indigenous peoples brothers are facing right now, and also our initial monitor on to look on and to see some of the cases, some of the initial cases that we have, and to also expand this effort and to check on them on how you can help and how you can support our our brothers and sisters as of now on our partner countries. But as Beverly said, we love to expand to get your help, your submissions, to expand our efforts to really raise awareness on the issue. We have the links are sent on our chat. So we have earlier submitted questions, and again I think G10 have mentioned earlier on the importance of the media, the role of the media. So for our speakers, for Ronnie and Ray and G10, how is it, how important is it to touch and link on and to gather the support of other sectors, as we have said, our friends from the legal institutions, our lawyer friends, of course, the media. I think Ronnie said something about the youth. What do you think is the importance of this in this work, in this campaign against judicial harassment? Ray, do you want to start?
Actually, Paul, it is very important to link with with different sectors. First, because now we want our issue of judicial harassment to um, for the people to learn about what is judicial harassment. Actually, during one of our during the workshop where attorney Mary Colmenar, where attorney Mary Colmenar is shared, many activists or land rights defenders, IP rights defenders, uh, uh, do not know do not know what to do in case of judicial harassments. We must have to learn to preempt or to prepare ourselves on this kind of which is this kind of actually issues or what do you want what how do you say it actually judicial using law to harass people is becoming a trend, and we must have to to expose this tendency of the states in using laws in harassing activists and land rights defenders. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ray. Ronnie?
Well, in West Papua case, our legal aid are very important actors or partners within West Papua that continues to support many of our activists who are judicially harassed. And that is also the need to build that with a regional to international legal team that really looking at how Indonesia breach some of the UN covenants and convention which they have signed up to. That is happening in West Papua, and there are many, but it's just that the capacity of our local partners focus mostly on activists to support them, whereas they have not so much time to really look into the international legal mechanisms to really call on Indonesia on cases like this. So certainly it presents a need more on this, and strengthening the indigenous to indigenous people connection, because that is another area of where sovereignty and self-determination and liberation, national liberation, played a strong role. Particularly with the media, West Papua is isolated, as we highlighted earlier, and so even international media to West Papua, many have tried various ways to use their bureau in Jakarta, the foreign correspondents in Jakarta, and try and sneak into West Papua, but few have been caught. Particularly, there was an Australian journalist working with the BBC when there was a breakout of the malnutrition on the south part of Papua, Merauke, and she was given permit to go and cover that. And the medical treatment was taken was just a instant coffee and 2 minutes noodles for kids. And so she took a photo with the military who took that, and then she got kicked out immediately the same time when that photo was out on the social media. Other media outlets like Al Jazeera did a documentary, but they smuggled the cameras and worked with the local fixers. ABC foreign correspondent here in Australia have done that. If you want to go into West Papua, there are different departments that you have to get permission. So it has to be the political legal security ministry, and then you got to go through home ministry, and then you go through the agencies like the securities in Jakarta, but then you get clearance as well. So the clearing process can take you for at least 2 years. So that means it blocks the capacity for any international journalists or media to come into the region. So it means that West Papua are the voice of their own people, of our own people. And so that means that the education into media advocacy is of critical importance. And that is one thing that we're going to embed into our the monitoring program as well, is to be able to be safe witness journalists on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ronnie. Jiten, you have mentioned earlier on the media, and maybe we can add the question about collaboration with media and other collaborative efforts to mainstream the issue. What do you think could be some of the steps that we can take to build it a more collaborative way in facing this campaign?
Yes, I think just let me also touch a little bit on the legal aspect. It's extremely important that we also focus on the legal aspect on two counts. Yes, we need the support of the legal fraternity, but we also need to address the increased challenges of the criminal laws, which are increasingly diluted, and also the harassment that took place in the pretext of national security, and where preventive detention are usually relied on. And I think this is a big challenge, where community leaders can be detained for 1 year and more than that, just in the pretext of national security and preventive detention. And also one of the challenges is the revision, the amendment to the criminal amendment law and unlawful activity prevention act in the case of India. And so I think we also need to see the challenges of the law in itself, because the criminal laws and also the national security laws are increasingly amended to make it more potent, so more difficult even to seek legal recourse through the judicial process. And I think that is one of the challenges that we also need to highlight and respond to. Media, in our case, we try to, as far as possible, we try to, whatever forms of media that are available at the local or even within the community level, and also the social media, for example. I think that is also what. As I said, we also need to find ways to overcome challenges to reach out to the national media or even the regional media. And I think unless and until that we are able to raise our concern with the national media, I think that's also a big challenge. So we really need to focus on finding alternate ways to reach our voice, and then also coming up with our own initiative, media initiative, including coming up with our own audiovisual documentation, and also our own audiovisual medium of communicating our initiatives. And finally, in terms of seeking our allies, I mean, despite the challenges, I think it's also important that we reach out to the National Human Rights Commission or even the Regional Human Rights Commission, because at least they may be ineffective in many ways, but at least ensuring that they took note of the cases of violation of harassment, I think that's extremely important. So then you can also use it as part of your media advocacy and also your advocacy in other forms as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jiten, and Ray and Ronnie. And we have a good points on how we can further collaborate. Mainstream one is, as Julie said here in the comments, to publicize the tracker with other existing monitors, like our friends from the Freedom House, Frontline Defenders. I think Beverly mentioned earlier on how to the work to be complementary with others who monitor on this kinds of attack. And also some good points from Sir Ice Bagilat here on the ecosystem, the process, the legal process being to be analyzed properly, especially when environment defenders, Indigenous Peoples Defenders are facing strategic lawsuit against public participation or SLAP. In addition to the already existing challenges for Indigenous people to access, if not totally absent, the hard way of accessing legal aid or even accessing legal support or accessing our judicial system and things like that. So thank you so much. So we're really running out of time. Thank you so much for everyone. Maybe just last message, a minute. I'll give you a minute just to close down our activity for tonight. I will start with Ray and then Ronnie and then Jita. Just to wrap it up, a short message. Yes, Ray?
I would
Thank you very much, Paul. I would like to thank everybody, the partners, Merdeka, G10, and Ronnie, for our collaboration on this and project. And I am looking forward for more collaboration works and hoping that our global manifesto should be popularized and more support so that we can get more support from other people from across the globe. Okay, that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I also want to echo exactly everything that that was said by Ray, and also to say that when it comes to West Papua, our representative to talk, there is a lot of the Indonesian boats and trolls also will be followed as manifested here. There were direct chats and threats already directed to me during this in the chat. And also, as we can see here, which is just keep coming, it shows the level of what we're doing has really touched the nerve of the state. And that means that they know what we are doing is of critical importance to the people and to the land. And it means that our struggle is also your struggle. So together, it is of importance for us to come together and strengthen one another and in solidarity. Thank you. Merdeka.
Yeah, I also joined a call for the stronger recognition of Indigenous people's rights. And I would also like to emphasize that the Indigenous human rights defenders and community leaders are extremely important, that their role and rights be fully recognized. It's also important that to build, to promote sustainable development and to promote justice, to promote peace in the region. And then it's extremely important that we continue this initiative so that we can foster more solidarity and more support among the Indigenous peoples, and so that we all can collectively, assert Indigenous people's rights in our region. Thank you, and looking forward to stronger solidarity among Indigenous peoples.
And for that, thank you so much to everyone, to our speakers, Beverly, and then to all our speakers and attendees. This is not the last time that you will see from us, as the challenges and the attacks continues. We'll always be here linking with each other, and we invite you to keep on standing with Indigenous peoples, with those marginalized, with those who have less in life but should have more in justice and in law, as we believe, especially for our Indigenous peoples, brothers and sisters. So again, thank you so much, and we wish to see you again. Please share widely our monitor and our manifesto, and we hope to see you in more of our discussions and actions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
thank you.
See you.